Chapter 3. Finally, Solomon started to build the house of Jehovah in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where Jehovah had appeared to David his father, in the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Accordingly, he started to build in the 2nd month on the 2nd day in the 4th year of his reign. And these things Solomon laid as a foundation for building the house of the true God, the length in cubits by the former measurement being 60 cubits, and the width 20 cubits. And the porch that was in front of the length was 20 cubits in front of the width of the house, and its height was 120, and he proceeded to overlay it inside with pure gold. And the great house he covered with juniper wood, after which he covered it with good gold, and then he brought up upon it palm tree figures and chains. Further, he overlaid the house with precious stone for beauty, and the gold was gold from the gold country. And he went on to cover the house, the rafters, the thresholds and its walls and its doors with gold, and he engraved cherubs upon the walls. And he proceeded to make the house of the most holy, its length in relation to the width of the house being 20 cubits, and its own width being 20 cubits, and then he covered it with good gold to the amount of 600 talents. And the weight for the nails was 50 gold shekels, and the roof chambers he covered with gold. Then he made in the house of the most holy 2 cherubs in the workmanship of images, and overlaid them with gold. As for the wings of the cherubs, their length was 20 cubits, the one wing of 5 cubits reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing of 5 cubits reaching to the wing of the other cherub. And the wing of the one cherub of 5 cubits was reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing of 5 cubits was in contact with the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubs were spread out 20 cubits, and they were standing upon their feet with their faces inward. Further, he made the curtain of blue thread and wool dyed reddish purple, and crimson and fine fabric, and worked in cherubs upon it. Then he made before the house 2 pillars, 35 cubits in length, and the capital that was upon the top of each one was 5 cubits. Further, he made chains in necklace style, and put them upon the tops of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he proceeded to set up the pillars in front of the temple, one to the right and one to the left, after which he called the name of the right-hand one Jachin, and the name of the left-hand one Boaz. Chapter 4. Then he made the copper altar, 20 cubits being its length, and 20 cubits its width, and 10 cubits its height. And he proceeded to make the molten sea, 10 cubits from its one brim to its other brim, circular all around, and its height was 5 cubits, and it took a line of 30 cubits to circle all around it. And there was the likeness of gourd-shaped ornaments under it clear around, surrounding it, 10 in a cubit, enclosing the sea all around. The gourd-shaped ornaments were in 2 rows, being cast in its casting. It was standing upon 12 bulls, 3 facing the north, and 3 facing the west, and 3 facing the south, and 3 facing the east. And the sea was above upon them, and all their hind parts were inward, and its thickness was a handbreadth, and its brim was like the workmanship of the brim of a cup, a lily blossom. As a receptacle, 3,000 bath measures were what it could contain. Further, he made 10 basins, and put 5 to the right and 5 to the left, to wash in them. Things having to do with the burnt offering they would rinse in them, but the sea was for the priests to wash in it. He then made lampstands of gold, 10 of them of the same plan, and put them in the temple, 5 to the right and 5 to the left. Further, he made 10 tables, and stationed them in the temple, 5 to the right and 5 to the left, and made 100 bowls of gold. Then he made the courtyard of the priests and the great enclosure, and the doors belonging to the enclosure, and their doors he overlaid with copper. And the sea he placed at the right side, to the east, toward the south. Finally, Hiram made the cans and the shovels and the bowls. So Hiram finished doing the work that he did for King Solomon on the house of the true God. The 2 pillars and the round capitals upon the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 round capitals that were upon the top of the pillars, and the 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network to cover the 2 round capitals that were upon the pillars, and the 10 carriages, and the 10 basins upon the carriages, the 1 sea, and the 12 bulls under it, and the cans, and the shovels, and the forks, and all their utensils Hiram Abiv made for King Solomon for the house of Jehovah of polished copper. In the district of the Jordan, the king cast them in the thick ground between Succoth and Zeradah. Thus Solomon made all these utensils in very great quantity, for the weight of the copper was not ascertained. And Solomon proceeded to make all the utensils that were at the house of the true God, and the golden altar, and the tables with the showbread upon them, and the lampstands and their lamps of pure gold, to light them up before the innermost room according to the rule, and the blossoms and the lamps and the snuffers of gold, it was the purest gold, and the extinguishers and the bowls and the cups and the fire holders of pure gold, and the entrance of the house, its inner doors for the most holy, and the doors of the house of the temple of gold. Chapter 5. Finally, all the work that Solomon had to do for the house of Jehovah was at its completion. And Solomon began to bring in the things made holy by David his father, and the silver and the gold, and all the utensils he put in the treasures of the house of the true God. It was then that Solomon proceeded to congregate the older men of Israel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chieftains of the paternal houses of the sons of Israel, to Jerusalem, to bring the ark of the covenant of Jehovah up from the city of David, that is to say, Zion. So all the men of Israel congregated themselves to the king at the festival, that of the 7th month. So all the older men of Israel came, and the Levites began to carry the ark. And they came bringing up the ark and the tent of meeting, and all the holy utensils that were in the tent. The priests, the Levites, brought them up. And King Solomon and all the assembly of Israelites that were keeping their appointment with him before the ark were sacrificing sheep and cattle that could not be counted or numbered for multitude. Then the priests brought the ark of the covenant of Jehovah into its place, into the innermost room of the house, into the most holy, to underneath the wings of the cherubs. Thus the cherubs were continually spreading out their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubs covered over the ark and its poles from above. But the poles were long, so that the tips of the poles were visible at the holy in front of the innermost room, but they were not visible outside, and they continue there down to this day. There was nothing in the ark but the 2 tablets that Moses had given at Horeb, when Jehovah covenanted with the sons of Israel while they were coming out from Egypt. And it came about, when the priests came out from the holy place, for all the priests that were to be found had for their part sanctified themselves, there was no need to observe the divisions, and the Levites that were singers belonging to all of them, namely to Asaph, to Heman, to Jeduthun, and to their sons and to their brothers, clothed in fine fabric with cymbals, and with stringed instruments and harps, were standing to the east of the altar, and along with them priests to the number of 120, sounding the trumpets. And it came about that as soon as the trumpeters and the singers were as one, in causing one sound to be heard, in praising and thanking Jehovah, and as soon as they lifted up the sound with the trumpets, and with the cymbals, and with the instruments of song, and with praising Jehovah, for he is good, for to time indefinite is his loving kindness, the house itself was filled with a cloud, the very house of Jehovah. And the priests were not able to stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of Jehovah filled the house of the true God. Chapter 6.